Good morning, colleagues, students, and seekers of literary light. Sonnet 27's speaker resembles not merely a lover lamenting distance, like so many scholars teach, but a Sadic Nestor, a hidden righteous soul whose restless imagination sustains the world by perceiving the divine presence through a radiant but often dimmed lens. They are not high-profile people. Most are unknown, humble individuals who sit quietly in the back corner of the church or synagogue. The poet's sleeplessness becomes the Lamed Vav's vigil, a weary yet luminous watching in the dark, a burdened perception that dreams the cosmos into moral coherence. Emilia Lanier's night was both literal and metaphysical, where the divine concealment and artistic creation meet in shared fatigue and shared fidelity. But what has Emilia Bassano Lanier got to do with the sonnets? Everything. The source documents for the sonnets are written in Aramaic and Hebrew, with the keys to unlock the sonnets found in Emilia's Salve Deus Rex Judaeorum, or Hail God, King of the Jews. They are taken from the very same sources, which are Zohar Adash 1:104b to 109b, the Mantuan 1557 to 1558, Tikkun HaZohar, it's written in Aramaic and Hebrew as well, Pirkei Avot, chapter 6, which is written in Hebrew, Philip Sidney's 1591 long prose pastoral poem, The Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia. I'm Peter Matthews. Welcome to this lecture on Sonnet 27. I've been working on this for the last 2 weeks, and every time I try and render the video, my computer crashes, and I've even upgraded my computer late last year, and it's still struggling. So without further ado, we open part 1 with, Weary with toil, I haste to my bed. The dear repose for limbs with travail tired. But then begins a journey in my head to work my mind, when body's works expired. Sonnet 27 begins with quotes from Philip Sidney's 1591, The Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia, where Emilia references the pastoral romance in her 1611 Salve Deus Rex Judaeorum, where after attacking the bard of Shakespeare, yes she does, directly attacks him, she reveals this nymph, quoth he, great Pembroke hight by name, sister to valiant Sidney, whose clear light doth shine so bright. Now, in Salve, Emilia was referring to the weary of his life, but first determining to be revenged of Demagoras. And this is speaking of the wicked Demagoras. And it's named after the 2nd century BC Arabian mage, Damagerian, who wrote on the virtue of stones, basically spontaneous emission of heat and light, like the demagogues. In biblical terms, it is a story about when judgment is executed. The Blessed Holy One does not do so without consulting the Lamed Vav Sadakim Nestarim, meaning the 36 concealed righteous ones in each generation at any one time who underpin the world. To prove, taken from Sidney's, to prove whether the goodly tree of your virtue will live in all toils, or at the news of plague his wearied soldiers from time to time refresh themselves after the toil endured in their last days' travel, he calls his troops together, basically to discuss strategy and encourage them after their former conquests, all of which are found in Arcadia. Both Sonnet 27 and Sidney's Arcadia are based on Ovid's The Art of Love, where Ovid shows the price of desire. where we become the prey, is fallen in my successful toils between the armies. We open Zohar Dash, investigating Genesis 18:16 to 17, where it harmonizes with Ovid. The men got up from their meal and looked out towards Sodom. As they left, Abraham went with them to send them on their way. When one of them turns to the Lord and asks, "Should I hide my plan from Abraham?" Now this is speaking, connecting back with Ovid and Arcadia, of a military strategy to destroy Sodom after the armies of the Lord are already weary from standing with Abraham in previous battles. Now the Lord said to Abraham, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous." Genesis 18:20. For he wanted to execute judgment upon Sodom, for he decided, "I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." Same portion, Genesis 18:20. Abraham remained with the Lord, but the others headed towards Sodom. Zohar Dash Midrash Elohim 1:104b teaches that Metatron serves as the intermediary between the soul and God. Though I must remind that 1 Timothy 2:5 clearly states there is one God and one mediator who can reconcile God and humanity, the man Christ Jesus. Now also Islam holds the same position, where the Quran states he does not speak from his own desire. It is nothing but revelation revealed. And I'll put the reference up on the screen because I do not speak a word of Arabic. Emilia defends Christ, asserting it is Christ who, and this is from Salve, in his dying arms he might embrace your beauteous soul and fill it with his grace. Not only did he achieve salvation for all on the cross, but Emilia admits that he fills us with grace via the Holy Spirit, Shekinah, the Spirit of grace, who became the intermediary for our souls that give light between Jesus Christ and us. This is a great difference between the Jewish Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Jewish Essenes. Now, as they left towards Sodom, Abraham went with them to send them on their way. Abraham asked, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" This is the great difference between the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Jewish Essenes. We have to remember that Jesus was a Jewish Essene from the Nazarene community of Essenes. They were called Nazarenes. Now, as they left towards Sodom, Abraham went with them to send them on their way. Abraham asked, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked?" What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? Genesis 18:23-25. And the Lord replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake." Genesis 18:26. Now Midrash Hanelim 101:4b explains there are 5 books in the Torah, and each has 10 commandments, being 50. So it's only fitting that the Lord would not destroy it if there were 50 Sadakim Nistarim, meaning 50 concealed righteous ones, in each generation at any time, who underpin the world, greet Shekinah, and re-establish the connection of the temple within. Essentially it means, happy are they that wait for him. Isaiah 30 verse 18. speaking of Yud-He, Vav-He, and Shekinah as they rise together and the 50 commune with her daily. It means these 50 righteous people who engage with Shekinah should not have to receive due punishment of the others with the shame of death and hell. Thus the Lord agrees not to destroy the world as a result of these righteous men and women. Emilia revealed her position on this in Salve, showing clearly that she is a Jewish Kabbalist and not a Christian, for Christianity does not believe in due punishment, but we believe in mercy and forgiveness, which we'll discuss in much more detail in Sonnet 56. We find the same thinking in the legal position of Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. In deep characters of due punishment, and naught but dying breath could cancel it. Shame, death, and hell must make the atonement, showing their evidence, seizing wrong for right, placing heaven's beauty in death's darkest night. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus in the Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 110b, says, "The righteous descendants of the wilderness may come to the world to come. For it is written, gather my poyas together to me, those that have entered into my covenant by offering." Psalm 50 verse 5. Gather my poyas together to me. You see, these are the righteous that are in each and every generation. Those that have entered into my covenant by offering, the ones who praise, embrace the baptism of fire, the trials of testing, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who submitted themselves to the fiery furnace to sanctify the name of God. Another example, Rabbi Yom Tom Levi, who gave his own life with many other, Lamed Vovnik, gathered together in York, who healed the world in taking their own lives during the massacre that occurred on Shabbat Haggadol, 16th of March 1190 AD, by their own sacrifice. They will inherit the world to come, those whose ancestors began the journey in the wilderness. For Emilia wrote, "But then begins a journey in my head, to work my mind when body's works expired," meaning when their body has expired and they have ascended. Before we attempt to traverse the legal and theological aspects, let us turn to the Tikkun HaZohar, commonly known as Tikkun, or rectifications. It was printed by Jacob ben Naphtali HaKohen, supervised by Rabbi Isaac Bassano of the Mantuan Synagogue. So you can see the connection. And the Zohar of Mantua, which is the other primary source document, it was also printed by them, the same people. In Tikkun 21, we find Rabbi Shimon drawing from Genesis 1:1. "In the beginning, God or Elohim created," whose name contains the feminine, talking about Elohim, me, where the mother lends a daughter her garments, and where the letters Israel draws, Ele, to rule the world, which we discussed in Sonnet 6. "For we lift our eyes and see who, speak of me, created these," being Ele, where we are to look into the heavens. Who created all the stars? He brings them out like an army, one after another, calling each by its name. Isaiah 40 verse 26. You can see the connections from the source documents starting to come together. In Tikkun 21, we find the sages like the luminaries of Mishnah discussing the 7 lower Sephirot and the war of the snake, where camps of angels come around and down to receive our prayers from the side of 50 letters, referring to the 50 gates of Bina, and while standing in prayer is standing before God, and as such, even if the king greets him, he should not respond to him. And even if a snake is wrapped on his heel, he should not interrupt his prayer. These 50 letters refer to the keys that open the 50 gates of Bina, or the 50 gates of understanding, meaning the 50 letters of the Shema corresponding to the 7 Sephirot: Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzah, Hod, Yesod, and Malkut. Multiplied by each other, 7 by 7 is 49 gates, and the 50th gate of Bina is Ein Sof, the infinite, the Messiah. Now, I want to run through these 50 gates. Now, I want you to note that gate 29 is the gate of the angels of the Sadakim Nestarim, the concealed righteous ones. This gate, they are both the ascended righteous and the concealed righteous. In other words, the ascended righteous who have already passed away and are in heaven, and the concealed, the ones that are still alive today. Primordial chaos, formlessness, primordial void, primordial abyss, space element, and this is the ear, eye, nose, and mouth. Now here we go into the elements: air, fire, water, earth, individuation of elements and qualities. 10. Combination and mixture. 11. Individuation of diverse minerals. Simple vegetation. 13. Seed-bearing grasses. 14. Herbs and trees. Fruition of vegetable life. Simple animal life. Insects and reptiles, fish of the sea, birds of the air, beasts of the field, material and bestial humankind, which we'll discuss later in the sonnets, the gifting of soul, Heya Nefesh, appearance of the human one, mystery of male and female, Adam and Eve, complete human one, gifting of 5 powers of the soul, which we discussed in Sonnet 1. Human 1. 29 holy and enlightened ones, or this is the angels of the righteous ones, the Lamed Vav, the Sadakis, the righteous women. Adam Kadmon, the veil of paradise, the first heaven, then the second heaven, the third heaven, the fourth heaven, the heavenly dwelling, which is the 5th heaven. The 6th heaven is Makom. Arabot, clouds or plains of light, the 7th heaven, entirety of heaven. 8th heaven, the supernal abode. Ashim, souls of fire or ministers of fire. Cherubim, strong ones. Beni Elohim, sons of God, the watchers. Elohim, lesser and greater divinities, the Malachim, messengers. 45, seraphim, the warriors of heaven. The Hashmalim, these are the clouds. Aralim, the thrones. Ophanim, they're the wheels. Hayot, holy living creatures. And then our last one, Ein Sof, the infinite, the Messiah. This is where Zohar 1:2a teaches on the precept of gender, that where the masculine powers of the Sephirot reach Shekinah, and she is transformed from masculine, ma, to feminine, mi. As the ritual goes, the letter He departs and the Yod enters, and she adorns herself in masculine clothing in the presence of every single male in Israel. Now, I've written a paper specifically on this that you can download and read. I'll put it in the description below. Emilia and Salve wrote one of the deepest keys straight from Tikkun 21. His members torn, and on his head a crown of sharpest thorns to satisfy for pride, anguish and pain, do all his senses drown, while they his holy garments do divide, his bowels dry, his heart full fraught with grief, crying to him that yields him no relief. Here, Emilia is referring to the crown and the thorns upon the head of the three fathers. Yes, it's talking about the crown of thorns, but it's also talking about another that I'll reveal now. It's a royal and priestly crown of the Nasi family, the King of Kings, a crown of Torah with secret key with three crowns. What is it? The Hebrew letter Shin. And I've discussed this at length. The opening of the sonnets is Shin, Shin. This key belongs to Jesus Christ, who has the keys to heaven and earth, death, hell, and all 50 gates of Bina. Now, my understanding in Christianity is these keys are offered to all Sadakim, righteous ones, whether concealed or not, for it is written, and I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. Matthew 16:19. But Emilia admits that it was Christ, and this is from Salve, who took the keys of all death's power away, opening to those who would his name obey. Now this is talking about the 50 gates of Bina, for she wrote, he descended from celestial glory, and therein unlocked the closet of your lovely breast, holding the key of knowledge in her hand, where we find the key of the cabin where yourself doth rest, specifically referring to gate 29. Now, in examining the legal position according to Judaism, we see a varying decision by God as Abraham reduces the number of the Sadakim Nestarim, connecting with each of the gates. For 50, God said, I will spare the entire city for their sake. Genesis 18:26. Pikei Avot, or Ethics of the Fathers, instruct there are 5 possessions the Blessed Holy One set aside as his own in the world: the Torah, heaven and earth, Abraham, Israel, and the temple. The first is Torah, which is explained in Sonnet 16. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old. Proverbs 8:22. Now to connect this passage to our opening verse. In the Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 99b, we are told every man was created for labor. As it is stated, man is born for toil. Job 5:7. And still I do not know, with regard to the toil of the mouth, whether it is for the toil of Torah or for the toil of conversation. When the verse states, this Torah scroll shall not depart from your mouth, Joshua 1:8, you must say that he was created for the toil of Torah. Therefore, for 50 Sadakim Nestarim, God said, I will spare the entire city for their sake. Genesis 18:26. For man is born to be weary with toil. I haste me to my bed, meaning until he goes down to his deathbed. Where he goes into the world to come depends on whether he engages in Torah, the first possession of God. Then Abraham begins a debate to find out the minimum number God would not destroy the world. You sort of wonder, how far is he going to go with it? Is he going to push his luck? Beginning with suppose there are only 45 righteous people rather than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? Genesis 18:28. The Lord said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 righteous people there. Genesis 18:28. Babylonian Talmud Sonnet 7a reminds us the Lord said, "Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Could you build me a temple as good as that? Could you build me such a resting place?" Isaiah 66:1. Thus, heaven and earth are God's second possession. This speaks of his bed, the dear repose or rest for limbs with travail tired, referring to the painful limbs of a weary body from toil. Some of my Levy family members believe in the way of the dog, humiliating oneself by getting around like a homeless man, throwing dirt on your head, while others slap themselves across their face like they're mad. For those who don't know the concept, the dog's role as a loyal guardian and how its reward teaches humans humility and justice. And sometimes this is how the Lamed Vav is to toil, is to go through the process by humiliating oneself. It's connected to Judaism. It's a root, the way of the dog, they call it. I just thought I'd mention it. The number 45 in Hebrew Gematria represents God's habitation, literally heaven. And the dew, D-E-W, that is given every morning anew as a blessing from the heavens, mentioned in Deuteronomy 32, verse 2. Let my teaching fall like rain and my words descend like dew, like showers on new grass, like abundant rain on tender plants. Babylonian Talmud, Sonnet 7a, compares the dew to Torah, goading us not to forsake it. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. Proverbs 4:2. How is this delivered to mankind? Through the seraphim, the warriors of heaven, who protect and fight for their king, and the fiery serpents who destroy evil, all of which transverse through gate 45. Abraham had a further advance. Suppose there were only 40. And the Lord replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of 40. Genesis 18:29. The third position of God is Abraham himself, though he didn't really want to anger God. You can imagine it ticking over in his mind, wondering what he could get it down to without making the Lord angry. But instead of sparing the entire city, we find God said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 40. For we find in legal terms, if the person in the wrong is sentenced to be flogged, the judge must command him to lie down and be beaten in the presence with the number of lashes appropriate to the crime. Deuteronomy 25 verse 2. Now we know that Pilate had Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip, John 19:1, 40 times. A lot of Christian scholars have had it wrong for centuries, alleging it was only 39 times, based upon one entry by the Apostle Paul, who recorded in 2 Corinthians 11:24, 5 times I received from the Jews 40 lashes minus 1. This is because under Jewish law, floggings were limited to 40 strokes. Babylonian Talmud, Makot 22a, records how many lashes does one flog a person sentenced to receive lashes pursuant to Deuteronomy 25:2. And it reads, by number 40. He is flogged with a full 40 lashes. The 39 lashes are divided into 3 and administered in 3 places on the body of the person being flogged. And where is he flogged the extra lash? Well, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there is 1 lash that remains. That lash is administered is administered between the shoulders. Therefore, we can appreciate Jesus was handed over to the Romans under Jewish law for punishment, where he received 40 lashes from the flagrum, a cruel form of death in itself. Yet Emilia tells us in Salve, their whipping, spurning, tearing of his hair with whips and taunts against their Lord are bent, but all in vain. For our heavenly King to death for us they sent. And Emilia relayed with all her passion, and how by suffering he could conquer more than all the kings that ever lived before. The legend of the many families of Lamedvav, or Lamedvav Sarakim Nestarim, meaning 36 concealed righteous ones, and each generation at any one point in time, who underpin the world, is found in Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 97b, and the Mantuan 1557-8, Aramaic and Hebrew Tikkun HaZohar, or Tikkun. In Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 97b, it refers to the world having no fewer than 36 righteous people in each generation who greet the divine presence, though they interpret it as through the means of a crystal. Essentially, it means blessed are those that wait. Lo, the Lamed Vav in Hebrew, meaning for him. Isaiah 30 verse 18, speaking of Yud Vav He and Shekinah as they rise together, and the 36 companions who commune with her daily. The Lamed Vav are given over for him in his service and commune with him daily. Babylonian Talmud, Sukkah 45b, reveals the numerological value of Lamed Vav is 36, alluding to the fact that there are at least 36 fully fledged righteous individuals in each generation, those who enter even without requesting permission, for whom the gates of heaven are open at all times. They are very few indeed. The 36th gate is Makom, the place of will, in the sixth heaven. Now, this is where we talk about the will of wills later in the sonnets. You know, people have misunderstood this portion of the sonnets, but it's about the will of wills of the Creator, where the divine providence of God is supervised by the angels of heaven, and the trials and rewards are given in the lower worlds. The 36 does not mean there are only 36 at one time. There are 36 in each generation at any one time. For example, and look, these numbers are not fixed, but for example, 90 to 100, 36, 80 to 90, 36, 70 to 80, 36, 60 to 70, 36, 50 to 60, 36, 40 to 50, 36, and so on until a newborn baby. There are also countless potentials who are called, because many are called but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. There must be many in waiting, ready to take up the mantle automatically when one dies. The problem is, our rabbis and Christian ministers have failed this generation because we have not taught on the Lamed Vav like the Jewish people in the previous generations. Woe unto our generation. The Lamed Vav have no need of crystals or magic. They can open any gate without a key given by the Messiah as they sleep or go about their day. But then begins a journey in my head to work my mind, even when body's works expired. For then my thoughts from far where I abide, begin to underpin the world. Wow. Each of the Lamed Vav Sadakim Nestarim have one of the upper 72 Sanhedrin, the 72 hidden angels of God, or the Shem HaMepharash, mentioned in Sonnet 10 as their guardian angel. The 2012-13 television series Touch, it was created by Tim Kring. It aired on Fox for 2 seasons. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a depiction of the Lamed Vovnek, where Kiefer Sutherland's autistic son Jake connected with the universe by a series of numbers.
6,919,377,000 of us live on this tiny planet, and only a few of us can see the connections. The patterns, mathematical in design, are hidden in plain sight. Just have to know where to look. I've been alive for 10 years, 5 months, 17 days, and 14 hours. And in all that time, I've never said a single word.
And this is called the Amelia sequence, and that is within the sonnets of Shakespeare. It's quite incredible. Now, these things seem random in the beginning, but in reality, they turn the cogs of heaven, deliver messages, pray the wicked back from the brink of darkness, and even right wrongs from their bed while asleep. Yet they are often diagnosed with disabilities like Jake. This is the reason Emilia wrote, "Intend a jealous pilgrimage to thee," speaking of Yud-He-Vav-He, "and keep my drooping eyelids open wide, looking on darkness which the blind do see," which is why I believe Emilia was a Lamed Vovnek of the royal lineage of David. Emilia had far too much information in her day to know the role of the Lamed Vovnek, not to be one herself. Now, I'll interrupt this for a moment because I wanted to tell you a little story. Emilia tells about the last portion of Beauteous where she had a dream. This dream was about how Beauteous came to her in a dream, and that's why I believe she was a Lamed Vovnek. The entire story of Beauteous, which is from the sonnets, came to her in her head at night while she was dreaming. Magnificent. Now let me return. Abraham whittled God down to 20, referring to Israel, the Lord's fourth position. Then finally Abraham said, "Lord, please don't be angry with me if I speak one more time. No fire and brimstone, Lord, no." Suppose only 10 are found there, Genesis 18:32. And the Lord replied, "Then I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. Genesis 18:33. For this refers to the possession, the temple of God. Why was 10 the minimum number? When I began this sonnet, I stated there are 5 books in the Torah, and each has 10 commandments with 10 utterances through which the world was created, being 10 Sephirot, referring to the tithe, 10%, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So it's only fitting the Lord would not destroy the world if there were 10 concealed righteous ones in each generation at any one time who underpin the world, greet Shekinah, and re-establish the connection of the temple within. Now, if the temple within is damaged and only 9 of the Sadakim Nestarim survive, connecting with only 9 Sephirot, then the time of judgment of the wicked has arrived before Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Now, I also want to mention here that we will discuss later in the sonnets that, this is sort of the rabbis walking through Galilee, and they sort of discuss things along the way. Now, later on we'll talk about 45 righteous, 45 Sadakim Nestarim. 30 are chosen from the house of Israel, from the Israeli people, both in Israel and in diaspora, outside Israel. And the other 15 come from Gentiles. And that's from the Zohar. Zohar Adash. It's from Jewish sources. It's not from Christian sources. It's from Jews. In case my Jewish friends are asking about it, it's from Jewish sources. Now to return to the topic at hand. Midrash Anilim 101, 107a. Midrash Anilim 1, 107a examines the verse, but the wicked are like the tossing sea, which cannot rest, whose waves cast up mire and mud. Isaiah 57:20, referring to when they visited Lot in Sodom, for it is written, but before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. Genesis 19:4. The city was overrun with wicked people who had perversity in their minds right up until the day of their deaths. Now let me explain the key of Shin from the Tikkun HaZohar, expounded by Fabrizio del Tin. For the head of the sword of Adonai is Yod, the Hebrew letter Yod, forming the head of the three fathers of the letter Shin, so that she can be crowned, a crown of the priesthood and royalty. This sword is of Yud-He Vav-He, and he takes a coal from the consuming fire from Gevurah to burn the world, changing the Yod into a Shin. Now when the two He from Yud-He Vav-He are forged into the sword, she says, don't stare at me because I am dark. Song of Songs 1:6. And she shines her colours, for it is written, when I see the rainbow in the clouds, I remember the eternal covenant between God and every living creature on earth. Genesis 9:6. For these are the colours of those purged by the fire of purity. Adonai. We find Ezekiel comparing Jerusalem to the grapevine to be purged instead of a lofty tree beside the waters. I will set my face against them. Although they have come out of the fire will yet consume them. And when I set my face against them, you will know that I am the Lord. Ezekiel 15:7. In the last part of the verse, it speaks of the face of Yud-He Vav-He against them, to be consumed or devoured by fire, referring to Adonai. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord Adonai will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by Yud-He Vav-He your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. 1 Samuel 25:29. For the masters of Mishnah say, how powerful is your sling, that it rises to the infinity and descends to the endless, as there is a Garden of Eden above for the righteous, which is under the throne of glory, and hell below for the wicked. Hell is the land of darkness and utter gloom. It is a land as dark as midnight, a land of gloom and confusion, where even the light is dark as midnight. Job 10:22. Only now can we understand the verses. Save that my soul's imaginary sight is like the shooting star that presents their shadow to my sightless view, because the wicked are ablaze in the darkness, which like a jewel hung in ghastly night, where they are flung by Adonai across the sky. It makes black night beauteous and her old face new. Speaking of the face of Adonai, with the coal and with the stars being flung across the sky. This is known as the hell above. Wow, that's what this sonnet is about. Emilia's final verse is prophetic, which describes Daniel chapter 12. Michael the archangel, who stands guard over your nation, will arise. Then there will be a time of anguish greater than any since the nations first came into existence. But at that time, every one of your people whose name is written in the book will be rescued. Many of those whose body lie dead and buried will rise up, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting disgrace. Daniel 12:1-2. In 12:1-2, he writes of the day of reckoning and the day of resurrection. Some souls will rise and go to everlasting torment and horror in hell, and some will rise to shame. Many will be purified, made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. Daniel 12:10. If we use Emilia's opening from Philip Sidney's Arcadia, she compared the dead that shine so bright and the pale dead but remain alive. We understand the mind of the author. This refers to Daniel 12:3 of the Lamed Vav, who will shine like the Zohar. Those who are wise will shine as bright as the sky. This is talking about the word used in the Hebrew is Zohar, radiance. And those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever. Daniel 12:3, referring to the Lamed Vav Sadikim Nestarim, who are wise and study the Zohar and go through the baptism of fire, the tests before the final redemption. Now we must remember Parashat Vayera, which is a portion we're teaching on from Sonnets 26-30. In Zohar Hadash relates to a vision by Rabbi Shimon where the world was darkened and the light was gone. We were overcome with darkness because the Sadikim, the righteous ones, who uphold the world with prayer, praise, and meditation unto God, were gone. The test is spoken in Zohar Hadash, where Rabbi Shimon stands up to the angel who comes to destroy the world, threatening him to send him down to the place of the fallen angels, and I put their name up on the screen. I don't want to pronounce them. That even if he cuts down every Lamed Vav, there will always be one standing to send him to the pit. It is only when the Blessed Holy One and he agree that the time has come, then it will be done. The Zohar, meaning radiance, will be seen of the Lamed Vavnik like Moses' face, which comes from the supernal mother, Bina, that is called Teshuvah, repentance. It comes from the trials of repentance. If you are burdened to repent, please do it, because this leads to salvation. The wise will not be tested below because they have already gone through the trials in this life and have the fragrances of the tree of life all over them from studying the Zohar. What is it? The basanos, balsam and frankincense. The balsam, it's incredible. Philip Sidney's Arcadia tells us of the rivalry of day and night, good and evil, and the conquests of his knights, talking about army, where the trials began, and one particular fellow was broken from the jailhouse, similar to the caverns of hell. This is the trials Emilia describes in hell, and the resurrection of the dead, where there can be lo, thus, by day my limbs, referring to the wicked who corrupted the covenant of circumcision, denied the Torah, and the resurrection of the dead, for they descend to hell below. Upon judgment, they do not ascend until the day of resurrection. By night, my mind, which speaks of the resurrection from the darkness and imagery of death. For thee and for myself, no quiet find, for they will be the righteous Isaiah prophesied of, who possess the land forever. For it is written, and your people will be righteous. They will possess their land forever. I will plant them there with my own hands in order to bring myself glory. Isaiah 60 verse 21. Now you might be thinking this is speaking of Israel in its own land now, but it is not. This is speaking of the future Zion. What an incredible sonnet. Some deep and wonderful imageries. Thank you very much for watching, and I pray the Lord would bless each and every one of you. Amen.